The Hungarian Grand Prix is over and F1 has its 7th different winner of the year as Oscar Piastri took victory in Budapest. But now F1 heads from Hungary to Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix, which means that once again it is time for my preview and predictions. This is a series where I'll be previewing, and then at the end of the video I'll be giving out my early predictions for the Grand Prix. If you enjoy the video then please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now let's get into the video. As usual, I will be talking about the top teams later on, so please do stick around for that. Yes, Budapest is over, and the race saw drivers reaching their boiling points as Max Verstappen was frustrated with his team, and Lando Norris was also getting frustrated with his team after being given the undercut by McLaren. But now F1 moves on to the legendary Spa-Francorchamps circuit for the final race before the mid-season break. And Spa is nothing like Budapest. Budapest is a short circuit with plenty of corners and no real long straights, making overtakes difficult. Spa, however, is the longest circuit on the calendar and features a very long Kemmel straight. It also features iconic corners such as La Source, Eau Rouge, Blanchimant and the final chicane, just to name a few of the corners. Spa is the ultimate compromise circuit for the drivers, as Sector 1 and Sector 3 are all about straight line performance, whereas Sector 2 is all about downforce and performance in high speed corners. Because of this, expect the teams to be running a mixture of medium and low downforce during the practice sessions as they try to find the best way around this iconic circuit. The circuit has also been resurfaced for this year, so any bumps that previously existed are likely to no longer be a factor, which I'm sure is pleasing for Red Bull. All of this is to say that I expect that once again, the running order will be different and we are potentially in for another chaotic weekend. Spa is an interesting circuit when it comes to the tyres. The tyre choices are arguably too hard for the circuit, however they can't really go any softer due to the stresses and load that gets put through them with some of the corners. Because of this, Pirelli will be going for the middle of the range when it comes to the tyres, which is a step harder than what we saw in Budapest, meaning that the C2 is the hard tyre, the C3 is the medium, and the C4 will be the soft compound of tyre. The soft and mediums are typically good enough for this race, and you can see that as last year there was a total of 37 pit stops, but pretty much everyone used the soft and medium tyres, with no one except Norris going for the hard tyres. The undercut can be very powerful around this circuit due to the length of the lap, so I can once again see it being a multiple stop race with the drivers using the soft and medium tyres. Overtaking at Spa is significantly easier than what we just saw at Budapest due to the launch the drivers tend to get off of the top of Eau Rouge, or Radion, whatever you want to call it, before going down the Kemmel straight, and you can see that as last year there was a total of 75 on-track overtakes. To help with overtaking, the Spa circuit features two DRS zones. The first DRS zone is down the pit straight into La Source, and the second DRS zone is on the exit of Eau Rouge, or Radion, whatever you want to call it, as they go down the Kemmel straight. In all honesty, they could probably do away with a second DRS zone and just have one into La Source, as overtaking into Leclerc is typically pretty easy. Last year, the pole position lap time was a 1:46.168, and that was set by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. During that lap, Max reached a top speed of 339 km/h, and the fastest lap in the Grand Prix itself was actually set by Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, and that time was a 1:47.305 as he boxed at the end of the race for a fresh set of tyres. With the new surface and the rate of development in F1, I expect that both of these lap times will be beaten this weekend. I just want to say that if you are enjoying the video so far, then I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. Now though, let's get back to the video and let's talk about Aston Martin. For Aston Martin, the Hungarian Grand Prix, albeit a bit of a tricky one due to them not having a second set of medium or hard tyres, actually turned out to be alright, and they did score points with Lance Stroll after Alonso let him overtake so that he could try to attack Tsunoda, only for Stroll to not give the place back at the end of the race. But this was an overall improvement from Aston Martin, and a sign that they might actually start moving forward once again. Going into the Belgian Grand Prix, there is a chance that they can have an alright weekend and once again try to get both cars into Q3. the circuit should be good for them, but I can see them having stiff opposition from Haas, who I think will also be pretty good this weekend. For Mercedes, the Hungarian Grand Prix was a bit of a comeback down from the meteoric rise at Silverstone, but even so, Lewis Hamilton still claimed a legendary 200th podium, and George Russell recovered to score some points after a difficult qualifying. Mercedes went into the race with 2 sets of hard tyres, and in a way, that turned out to be an advantage for them with the hotter conditions. This is still a massive improvement from them from where they were at the beginning of the season. Hamilton was able to undercut Verstappen and actually got to race him until frustration started to boil over for the Dutch driver, and going into Spa, I can see it being another strong weekend for Mercedes, and we should see them bounce back to be the 3rd fastest car. Hungary was always going to be a stronger race for Ferrari, but at Belgium I can see it swinging back in Mercedes' favour overall, especially as the weather at Spa is going to be somewhat cooler than what it was in Budapest. The types of corners should also suit their car very nicely. For Ferrari, the Hungarian Grand Prix was a much better performance from what we have seen from them recently, especially for Charles Leclerc, as he was potentially able to race both Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, before of course they pulled away a bit later on into the stint, and Leclerc himself finally had a decent performance after a few miserable weekends. Teammate Carlos Sainz had a bit more of a tricky race and seemed to be lacking a lot of pace compared to Leclerc, especially early on in the Grand Prix. It may have been an improved race from them, but they did still slip to 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. For Spa, I can see them once again having a bit more of a tricky race weekend unless they have properly sorted out their high-speed bouncing issues. If they have, then it will be interesting, but if not, and they do suffer from high-speed bouncing, then I fear they will be resigned to being the 4th fastest team this weekend. For McLaren then, it was a 1-2 result as Oscar Piastri won his first race in F1, and I have to be honest, he shocked me this weekend, but not in a bad way, in a very positive way. I didn't expect him to be able to manage the pace as well as he did early on in the Grand Prix, but he did do a fantastic job. Lando Norris came home to 2nd place after eventually giving the place back to Oscar, but for me, this race still highlighted problems with McLaren. They were so focused on the cars around them that they actually put themselves in a difficult spot by giving Lando Norris the undercut on his own teammate, which then became even more awkward as Norris had extra pace in the final stint. They have now gotten a race win for both of their drivers, but the next task for McLaren is to improve their team operationally. They were helped by Red Bull having a nightmare of a weekend, but Spa will likely be a much stronger weekend for Red Bull, and McLaren will need to be working like a well-oiled machine to beat the Bulls, or at least Max Verstappen, as it is one of their strongest circuits. Norris is still the lead driver in the team, but Oscar is getting better and better with each weekend, and it will be interesting to see if the McLaren duo start taking points off of each other. I don't think Spa will be as strong for McLaren as Budapest was, especially with Sector 1 and Sector 3 requiring high top speeds, but it should still be a decent weekend for McLaren, and at the very least they should be the 2nd fastest team. For Red Bull, the Hungarian Grand Prix was a shocking race, and frankly we saw the worst of Max Verstappen. It was a shocking race from him with very poor racecraft, not being helped by the fact that the pit wall was also having a bit of a mare with the strategy. This was the worst that we've seen Red Bull probably since 2018 to be honest. The car was not that great, the strategy was not good, and Verstappen was very frustrated, which led to mistakes. Then there was Perez, who was doing Perez things in the 2nd Red Bull. Going into Spa though, Red Bull will be confident. This is one of their strongest circuits. 2022 and 2023 was utter domination by them. In 2023, Verstappen started in 6th place after a power unit penalty and won the race by over 22 seconds from his teammates and 32 seconds from Leclerc in 3rd. I don't think they'll be quite as dominant this weekend, but I can see them being back to their best with Max Verstappen, and they should be able to take the fight to McLaren, who are closing in on them now in the Constructors' Championship. So with that then, what are my early predictions for the Belgian Grand Prix? Well, I think the top midfield team and midfield driver will be Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, as I expect Haas to be very fast around this circuit, especially with their straight line performance. But now then, what about the top 5 and pole position? Well, for pole position, I am going to go for Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, as I do think he will bounce back with a vengeance. But now, what about the top 5 for the Grand Prix? Well, in P5, I'm going to go for George Russell in the Mercedes. P4 will be Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. P3 will be Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. P2 will be Lando Norris in the McLaren. And I think Max Verstappen is finally going to win a Grand Prix after not winning the last 3 races, which is kind of insane to say. But those are my thoughts. The question is though, what are your predictions for the Belgian Grand Prix? In the comment section down below, please do let me know. And as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching.